Hoarding bugs. Hazard level C. They take 2 hits to kill, do 30 damage per hit, take 1 second to open doors, and are most commonly found on Assurance. Hoarding bugs have 3 phases: roaming, guarding, and aggro. When a loot bug spawns, it'll immediately enter phase 1, where it will begin roaming around the map searching for items. Loot bugs don't roam around randomly. It's actually pretty interesting the way it works. So right here is the loot bug's nest, and what it will do is explore a little bit away from its nest, then it'll drop back. Explore a little further, drop back. Further, drop back, and it'll keep repeating this process until it's found an item. So here we have a different example. The loot bug's nest is right here. Now, once he begins his roaming phase, he quickly explores this first room. He then explores this catwalk room, and then he explores main room. Since there are no items here, he will not go back to any 3 of these rooms. He works his way into the sewage system, and from there he will explore a little bit and drop back. And explore a little and drop back. Now, on this turn, he should turn this corner here, and then he drops back, and he will keep working his way further and further into the system until he has found an item. If the looting bug hasn't found an item after 3 or 4 minutes of being in this phase, it seems like its memory completely wipes and it will start exploring rooms that it's already been to. When a loot bug does find an item, no matter how deep into the facility they are, they'll bring it all the way back to their nest, putting them into phase 2. Phase 2 will begin as soon as a loot bug drops an item down at their nest. A 15-second timer will begin. As soon as that 15 seconds is up, they will go back into phase 1. If they happen to spot you while they're in this phase, it will pause their timer. They will stop and stare at you, guarding their items. As soon as you break line of sight, the timer will continue from where it left off. The only time they'll leave this phase early is if you aggro them or drop an item in front of them, in which case they'll pick it up and then go back. If a loot bug is in phase 1 and it spots you near their nest, this will also put them in phase 2. So I also discovered loot bugs can hear you. I know a lot of people think eyeless dogs are the only enemy in this game that can hear you, but I'm sure I can change your mind after this. So for this example, I want you guys to watch the minimap in the top right corner. As you can see, the loot bug is in his roaming phase. He's checking this room to my right, and then he's also checking this room over there, which has stairs. That's why his dot disappears. Now, as he's heading back to go check that room with the stairs, I get up to sprint. He ditches that plan and goes straight to his nest. If that wasn't enough to convince you, it turns out loot bugs can hear you through voice chat too. So as you can see, the loot bug is taking the same route as before, and as soon as I speak, testing, 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 testing. Wow, that is wild. He goes straight back to his nest. Oh, that's crazy. I tested this multiple times. Loot bugs can hear you walk, sprint, crouch, and they can even hear you turning your flashlight on and off. The last phase is aggro. Loot bugs have 3 different types of aggro: soft aggro, hard aggro, and super aggro. Soft aggro is triggered when you get too close to a loot bug. This will cause them to fly towards you and try to kill you. Just run from them, make sure you're turning corners and trying to break line of sight. They should de-aggro pretty quickly. You can also try dodging their attacks, but I found that this is not very reliable. If they're in their guarding phase, getting too close will immediately send them into a soft aggro. If they're in their roaming phase, you can actually run right through them without them being aggroed, but if you stay too close for more than like a second or 2, this will also send them into a soft aggro. If a loot bug is roaming and spots you near their nest, this is the last way you can send them into a soft aggro. Hard aggro is triggered when you hit a loot bug. This will cause them to chase you much longer. Even if you're running, cutting corners, and breaking line of sight, they will continue to search around the facility for you until they've killed you. The only way to get out of this is to either kill them, or if you break line of sight for about 15 seconds, they will go back into phase 2. Once they go back into phase 2 after a hard aggro, they will be buzzing. If they spot you while they're buzzing, this will send them back into a hard aggro. The buzzing will only stop once the 15 seconds of phase 2 is over and they go back to roaming. Super aggro is triggered when you take an item from a loot bug. It's the same thing as a hard aggro, but the buzzing never stops. When you take the item, the loot bug will aggro onto you. If you can manage to lose it after 15 seconds, it'll go back into phase 2, buzzing. After the 15 seconds of phase 2, it will go into its roaming phase, still buzzing. So as soon as it spots you, even if you've dropped the item, it will immediately aggro onto you. Also, if you try to be sneaky about this and take an item while they're in their roaming phase, they'll be super aggroed the next time they see you. The only way to de-aggro them is by dropping the item you took and giving them enough space to grab it. Just be careful, because if you don't give them a lot of space, they'll continue to chase you. Also, there's no trading system. Whatever item you took from them needs to be the item you drop. I wouldn't recommend taking items from loot bugs, but if you are, make sure it's the last item you're taking, head straight for a door, and don't go back in because they'll be super aggroed. When it comes to killing loot bugs, there's a couple things you should know. They speed up as they go, so they're really good down long hallways. They're not very good at turning, and when they're aggroed, they can open doors instantly. Since they have trouble turning, when they're flying towards you, you just want to strafe to the left or right. They also have trouble hitting you when you're running in a circular motion. The easiest way to kill them is when they're in phase 2, walk up and hit them, dodge the first attack by strafing left or right, and when they charge you again, hit them for the second time to secure the kill. Keep in mind, loot bugs do 30 damage per hit. They'll do 10 damage per hit when you're at critical health, which is 20 or lower, totaling at 5 hits to kill you. Remember, hoarding bugs will pick up any items you drop, so if you see one on your map, make sure you're bringing all your items outside. I have a ton of ideas for this game going into the future, some of which requiring a bunch of players, so if you're interested in being in future videos, join the Discord. It'll be the first link in the description.